Welcome to the Emanuel Swedenborg Fan Club, the podcast that explores what it means to work well, live purposefully, and find meaning in what we do every day. I'm your host, James Hindmarsh. Today we will be talking about the useful life, or as I call it, the joy of work. As always on the Emanuel Swedenborg Fan Club podcast, our special guest is no other than Emanuel himself. Welcome.
Thank you. I must admit I am still new to this modern medium known as a podcast. However, I can see it's being useful as it provides another way for people to hear and reflect on my message.
That's a perfect place to begin. You've just used the word useful. For most people, it's a fairly modest term, even faint praise. He's useful. It's useful enough. But for you, usefulness meant something far greater, almost something sacred.
Consider this. God does not love in the abstract. Divine love is always moving outward, always creating, always sustaining, always acting for the good of others. The sun does not shine for itself, nor does the heart beat for its own pleasure. All creation is a vast expression of use and service. Human beings formed in the image of that love are most fully alive and most truly human when they are faithfully engaged in carrying out such work.
Let's get into that. You wrote extensively how angels spend their time, and the answer, which I think surprises many readers, is that they work. They don't recline on clouds. They have occupations.
Yes, and this is where many people are surprised because they have inherited a limited idea of heaven, an eternal rest, a complete escape from all work. But what was revealed to me is this. In heaven, every spirit has a function, a role, a service they carry out for the good of the community. Some lead, some teach, some welcome and guide newcomers, and some care for children who passed from this world in their youth. There are communities devoted to every kind of useful and beneficial work the mind can imagine. And here is the crucial point. Those angels are not working because heaven demands it of them. They are working because they want to. The love they carry within them must flow outward into use, and this brings them joy.
That's a striking image. Can you say more on this?
In Divine Love and Wisdom, I describe the nature of love itself. Love, at its deepest, is not a feeling that sits inside us like a stone in a pocket. It is a living force, always moving, always seeking an object, always desiring to benefit another. When I love a friend, I want to do things for that friend. When a parent loves a child, the love is not satisfied merely by feeling tender. It must feed, protect, teach, nurture. That doing is not separate from the love. It is the love made real. Work, then, in the highest sense, is how love shows itself in the world. The craftsman who makes a chair with care and skill is not merely producing furniture. He is expressing something about himself, his care for the person who will sit in it, his relationship to excellence. The physician who studies all night to understand a puzzling illness is not merely being diligent. She is loving her patient through her effort.
This connects, doesn't it, to your concept of the grand man, the Maximus Homo, in which you describe all of society as something like a single body.
It does, very directly. I understood society, and indeed all of creation, to be organized something like a human body. In a healthy body, every organ performs its function not for itself alone, but for the whole. The lungs do not breathe for the lungs. They breathe for the blood, for the brain, for the hands that write and the legs that walk. If the lungs decided to breathe only for themselves, to hoard the air, the body would die, and so would the lungs. Society is the same. The baker bakes for the farmer and the schoolteacher as well as for herself. The judge dispenses justice not for personal glory, but because justice is what the social body requires to remain healthy. When each person performs their use faithfully, and I mean here faithfully, with genuine care and not merely mechanical compliance, The whole flourishes, and so does each individual within it.
There's something almost anti-individualist about that vision.
I would say it is trans-individualist. The individual does not disappear, quite the opposite. It is through performing one's genuine use that the individual becomes most fully themselves. A musician who plays for others discovers depths in their own playing that the musician who performs only for a mirror never finds. We do not lose ourselves in serving. We find ourselves. This is one of the great paradoxes of spiritual life.
Let's turn the coin over. You wrote at some length about what happens when people do not work, when people are idle, or when they work purely for selfish ends. What does that look like spiritually in your framework?
Idleness is not merely a practical failing, it is a spiritual danger of the highest order. In Heaven and Hell, I describe how spirits who had lived in idle luxury on earth, who had been accustomed to having everything done for them and who had developed no genuine love of doing anything for others, found themselves utterly miserable after death. Not because they were punished from without, but because they had nothing within them to give. Heaven is an atmosphere of active love. Imagine a person who has never exercised dropped into a room full of joyful dancers. They cannot participate. They are not excluded. They are simply unable. Idleness atrophies the very capacities that heaven requires.
And what about people who work very hard but purely for themselves? Who labor with great energy, but whose only aim is personal wealth, power, or fame?
This is the subtler and in some ways more dangerous problem. I call this self-love or love of self above all else, and I was careful to distinguish it from proper self-regard, which is healthy and necessary. We must love ourselves sufficiently to care for our health, our development, our family. That is good. The corruption occurs when self-love becomes the supreme end, when a person works not to contribute but to consume, not to serve but to dominate, not to create but to acquire. Such a person may appear industrious, even brilliant, but their work has become inverted. It flows inward rather than outward. And inwardness, in spiritual terms, is the direction of hell.
You're saying the direction of the love matters more than the amount of the effort?
Precisely. A thief may work very hard, a tyrant may be tireless, an arms merchant may be extraordinarily industrious. The effort is not the measure. The measure is the end toward which the effort flows. Does it ultimately serve others, the community, the neighbor, or does it ultimately flow back only to oneself? I wrote at some length about the difference between what I call genuine charity and what might be called performed charity, doing good things in order to be seen doing them, or to earn reward, or to feel superior. This, too, is a form of self-love. True usefulness is done for the sake of the use itself and for the sake of those it benefits. When that motivation is pure, the joy that results is extraordinary.
Let's dwell there for a moment. The joy. Because I think some people listening might hear this vision of work and think, it sounds rigorous, it sounds demanding. Where does joy come in?
This is perhaps the most important correction I can offer. I'm afraid I've been presented by some of my readers as a rather grim moralist. Work as duty, usefulness as obligation. This is entirely opposite to what I intended and what I was shown. The angelic life is characterized above all by delight. The angels are not solemn workers grinding through heavenly obligations. They are beings in a state of such profound joy that it is difficult to convey to those still in natural bodies. And this joy is directly correlated to their performance of uses. The more they give, the more they glow. The more they serve, the more alive they feel.
Why? What is the mechanism, to use your scientific vocabulary, of that connection?
I would describe it this way. The human being is a vessel, a form designed to receive divine love and wisdom and transmit them into the world. When this transmission occurs freely, when love flows in and flows out through useful action, the vessel feels what I can only call an inflow of delight. It is not pleasure in the ordinary sense, though it contains pleasure. It is more fundamental than pleasure. It is the feeling of being exactly what you were designed to be, doing exactly what you were designed to do. I had some experience of this in my scientific work. When I was deeply engaged in a problem, such as the structure of the blood or the mechanics of a mine drainage pump, there were hours, sometimes entire days, in which I was so absorbed that I lost all sense of myself as separate from the work. This is what your modern age might call a flow state, I believe. I would call it a touch of heavenly delight, the soul giving itself fully to a use and being filled by giving.
That's a beautiful description, and it resonates with what many people report. Artists, scientists, craftspeople, teachers. This sense of losing themselves in work and emerging renewed rather than depleted.
Yes, and notice the work that produces this delight is always work that has an outward direction. The writer who is lost in service to the story, not to their own reputation, but to the story itself, to the readers who will encounter it, that writer experiences this delight. The scientist who is genuinely in love with the question rather than with being the one who answered it. There it is again. Wherever genuine outward-facing love is at work, you will find this delight as its natural companion. Conversely, when I have seen people, and I spent many years in the courts of Europe observing people, who had all the external marks of success, but whose work was fundamentally self-serving, I observed in them a curious restlessness, no achievement ever satisfied. Each success only inflamed the appetite for more. This is what I described as the torment of insatiability, the inability of self-love to be filled, because it is drinking from a vessel with no bottom.
We have a number of listener questions that came in before the show. Let me put some of them to you directly. Paul from Brisbane asks,
Mr. Swedenborg, I work in finance, investment banking. Honestly, some days I can't see how what I do serves anyone. I help rich people get richer. Is there any way to find genuine usefulness in a job like that? Or should I just change careers?
I appreciate this question very much. The young man's honesty speaks well of him. Let me offer two thoughts. First, every occupation, properly understood, has legitimate uses embedded in it. Finance, at its root, is a mechanism for directing the resources of society toward productive ends, toward building things, employing people, developing capabilities that serve genuine needs. The question is not whether the occupation has uses, nearly all do, but whether you are occupying the part of that occupation that serves those uses, or a part that has become detached from them. Second, and perhaps more importantly, I would gently challenge this young man to examine what he means by helping rich people get richer. There is nothing intrinsically wrong with wealth. What I warned against was the love of wealth as an end in itself, the worship of riches. But a wealth manager who genuinely helps families preserve resources that will support their children's education, or fund a hospital, or sustain a business that employs hundreds, that is a genuine use. The question is not the job. The question is, toward what ultimate end does my work flow? If I can trace a genuine path from my daily labor to genuine benefit for real people, the use is present. If I cannot, if I am simply moving money to produce more money with no connection to anything genuinely useful, then his discomfort is, I would say, the voice of his better self, and that voice deserves to be heeded.
Jane from London asks,
I'm a nurse. I used to love my job, but after years of overwork and being undervalued, I've lost the joy completely. I go through the motions. How do I find it again?
This question moves me deeply. What this nurse describes is something I would call the exhaustion of the vessel, when the demands of giving have depleted the very capacity to give. And this is not a moral failing, it is a physical and spiritual reality. In my cosmology, love flows through us. It is not ultimately generated by us. We are, as I said, vessels. A vessel must be open to receive before it can transmit. When a person has been pouring out for years without adequate renewal, adequate rest, adequate recognition, adequate reciprocity, the vessel does not empty of love so much as it closes around itself as a protection. To this woman, I would say, the loss of joy is not a sign that the love is gone. It is a sign that it has gone into hiding for self-protection. It needs to be given permission to return. This requires rest, true rest, not mere cessation of labor, but genuine recreation, literally recreation. It may require the deliberate remembrance of why she chose this work, the specific moments when she felt most alive in it. The memory of genuine usefulness can rekindle the love of it. And I would say something else which may be uncomfortable. Systems and institutions that routinely exhaust those who perform, uses within them are themselves in need of reform. The overwork of nurses, of teachers, of caregivers, this is a social injustice as well as a personal tragedy. Those who govern such systems bear a heavy spiritual responsibility.
Peter from New York City asks,
Hi, I'm 16. I don't know what I want to do with my life and everyone keeps asking me. How do I figure out what my use is?
16, wonderful. This young person is asking the most important question a human being can ask, and I commend them for asking it so early. My counsel would be this: do not search for your use as though it were a buried object waiting to be found. Rather, pay careful attention to the experiences that produce in you what I described as delight. Not the shallow pleasure of entertainment, but the deeper satisfaction of genuine engagement. What activities make you feel more alive, more yourself, more connected to others? What problems genuinely interest you? What suffering in the world genuinely troubles you? The intersection of your deepest interests and the world's genuine needs, that is where your use lies. And you will not find it by sitting still and thinking. You will find it by trying things, by making things, by serving in small ways, and noticing what the experience of serving teaches you about yourself. Also, do not be in a hurry. I was nearly 60 before my greatest work began. The years of preparation were not wasted years. They were the formation of the instrument. Your question itself is a hopeful sign. Those who never ask it are in far greater danger than those who ask it earnestly.
I want to press on something you've touched on a few times, the question of intention. Two people can do the same work, in the same job, with the same results visible to the world. But internally, their motivations are entirely different. Does that matter to you?
It matters enormously, and it is in fact the central matter. I wrote extensively about what I called the internal and external of human action. The external is what is visible, the deed, the result, the social effect. The internal is what drives it, the love that initiates the action. Two physicians may practice identically from the outside. One loves her patients, genuinely, actively cares about their recovery, and her medicine flows from that love. Another has learned to perform caring very well, but inside is primarily motivated by status and money. The outcomes may be similar in many cases, but the internal states of those two physicians are vastly different, and over time those internal states shape who those physicians are becoming.
Becoming, I want to stop on that word. You're suggesting work shapes the self?
This is one of my deepest convictions. Every action we take is not only an effect upon the world, it is also a cause upon ourselves. When I act from genuine love, I strengthen that love in myself. When I act from self-interest dressed up as charity, I strengthen that particular form of self-deception in myself. We are not static beings. We are always in process, always becoming something. This is one reason why the quality of our working life matters so profoundly for spiritual development. A person who spends 40 years in work they find meaningless, performed only for money with no genuine care for those they serve. That person has been, in a very real sense, spiritually deformed by those years. Not punished from without, but shaped from within. The habits of the heart, practiced daily, become the structure of the soul.
That's a sobering thought.
And a hopeful one, because it means that every day of genuine, loving, useful work is a day of spiritual growth. The humble person who sweeps floors in a hospital, if they do so with genuine care for the patients who will walk those floors, genuine respect for the institution they serve, is developing their soul as surely as any theologian. Sweeping floors with love is as spiritually potent as writing sermons with self-importance. More so, perhaps.
Lincoln from Tokyo asks,
Mr. Swedenborg, you were an extraordinarily prolific worker yourself. Volumes of scientific writing, then volumes of theological writing. But you also seem to have a strong contemplative dimension. How do you balance active work with inner quiet?
I will confess I was not naturally gifted at rest. The work was always calling. But I came to understand, both through experience and through my spiritual explorations, that the active and contemplative lives are not opposites. They are partners, and each requires the other. Contemplation without action is like a furnace with no flue. The heat has nowhere to go and eventually suffocates the fire. Action without contemplation is like a river without a source. Eventually the current runs out. The inner life, prayer, reflection, the cultivation of one's relationship to the divine, is not a retreat from work. It is the renewal of the source from which genuine work flows. In practical terms, I found that the mornings before the full engagement of the day were the most valuable time for this inner work. I kept journals. I practiced what I called a searching of the spirit, a regular honest examination of my motives. Not to punish myself, but to maintain clarity about the difference between what I was doing and why I was actually doing it.
Faye from Melbourne asks,
You've described heavenly work as joyful. But honestly, a lot of necessary work is just dull. Accounting, data entry, maintenance. How is a person supposed to find spiritual meaning in genuinely boring tasks?
I appreciate the directness of this question. Let me be equally direct. First, not all work will be equally interesting to all people, and this is perfectly fine. I do not claim that every moment of work must produce transport and ecstasy. Even in heaven there are tasks that are more routine than others. The delight I spoke of is not the same as constant excitement. It is a deeper, steadier satisfaction, the knowledge that what I am doing matters, that it contributes, that it is part of something larger than itself. The data entry clerk who understands that their accuracy enables a hospital to bill correctly, which enables the hospital to pay nurses, which enables patients to receive care, that person, if they hold this chain of connection in their awareness, has access to meaning even in a tedious task. The connection to use does not have to be felt in the task itself. It can be understood, remembered, held consciously. And second, genuine boredom, the profound, persistent sense that one's work has no connection whatsoever to anything that matters, is not something to simply endure indefinitely. It may be a signal. It may be the soul indicating that a different use awaits. We are not obligated to perform meaningless labor in perpetuity out of a false sense of duty. But this is a conclusion to arrive at carefully, not hastily, after genuine effort to find and cultivate the meaning that may be present but hidden.
We're coming to the end of our time, though I suspect we've barely touched the surface of what you have to say on this. As we close, I want to ask you about something more personal. You lived a remarkable double life, the scientist and the mystic, the man of the world and the man of the spirit. Looking back at the whole arc of your life's work, what do you feel was your most important use?
The scientific work was, I believe, genuinely useful in its time and place. I helped improve the minds that Sweden depended upon. I contributed something to our understanding of the human body and the natural world. This work I do not dismiss, but the work I was given to do in the second half of my life, the theological writing, I believe was the primary use for which I was prepared. Not because theology is more important than engineering, you understand, but because it was what was most needed and because I was positioned to do it. I was shown that the traditional Christian understanding of faith, love, and the afterlife had become distorted in ways that were causing real harm. People were being told that faith alone saves, that what you believe matters, but not what you do. I found this not only theologically incorrect, but spiritually dangerous. A faith that is purely internal, purely intellectual, with no expression in useful action, is like a body with no limbs. It cannot do what a body is for. My most important use, then, was to try to reconnect the inner and the outer, to articulate a vision of human life in which what we do and what we love and what we believe are not three separate things, but one living whole. Whether I succeeded in that use, I leave to others to judge.
I think many people would say you did. As we close, is there a single thought you'd leave our listeners with about work, about usefulness, about joy?
Yes, I would say this: the deepest joy available to a human being is not the joy of receiving. It is the joy of giving, of genuinely lovingly doing something that makes a difference to another person. This joy is available in every occupation, in every station of life, in every moment of genuine service. The world will tell you many things about what constitutes success: wealth, recognition, power, comfort. I do not dismiss these things. They have their place, but they will not fill the deep hunger in a human soul. Only love, expressed through useful action, will do that. Find what you can do for others. Do it with all of yourself. And you will discover, perhaps to your own surprise, that in serving others, you are most fully alive. This, I believe with everything I am, is what we were made for.
Emanuel Swedenborg, thank you for being our guest today. For listeners who would like to know more about your life and work, can go to swedenborg.netlify app.
The pleasure and the use has been entirely mine.